you action figure enthusiasts out there. JC here, and first of all, let me say welcome to 2019. Hopefully, you guys had a great New Year's Eve and a great holiday. Today is January 1st, so this is my first video of 2019. I am hoping that 2019 will be a very prosperous year for everybody and that there'll be a lot of action figures in everybody's future, including my own. I do think that overall this will be a pretty exciting year for action figures, so keeping my fingers crossed in that regards. But again, definitely hoping that that is going to be a great year for everybody. Now for today's video, it's really less of a news video and more of kind of a toy talk video. I'm going to only be talking about one subject, and that is in regards to the recent news that broke right before Christmas about Mattel, Spin Master, and the DC comic license. So if you haven't heard, if you missed it while you're traveling for the holidays or what have you, there was a press release, which was a very vague press release that was put out by a company known as Spin Master. And if you're not familiar with them, it's understandable. They don't really do a whole lot in the way of action figures. The last time I remember them really doing any kind of action figures is when they did figures for the Tron movie, which those figures were really not that good. So again, if you're not that familiar with them, I certainly understand that. But right before Christmas, they did put out this vague press release stating that they had obtained at least a portion of the DC comic license from Warner Brothers. Now, as you probably know, Mattel up until this point and for some time now, that they have been the primary licensed toy holder for DC Comics. And of course, they've done tons of things, DC and more recently the DC Multiverse line and such. And so, plus a lot of stuff for kids, a lot of basic figures and role play stuff. But I'm going to be focusing here today, obviously, primarily on the adult collector oriented stuff. So with the press release, so first thing I want to do is I want to just set some things straight because there's a lot of, I don't want to say wrong information because it could end up being right, but I think it's information where people are jumping the gun, they're making assumptions without really knowing all the facts at this point. And so I just, again, want to kind of set the record straight on exactly what we know at this point, which is not a whole lot, to be quite honest. That's why I'm not really calling this a news video, because honestly, I don't really have a whole lot of actual factual news. This is more my opinion. But we have this press release that was put out by Spin Master right before Christmas. And in that press release, what it says, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim, is Spin Master will be the new toy licensee for DC in the boys action figure category. And then they list specifically remote control and robotic vehicles, water toys, and games and puzzles. Now, they make no mention whatsoever in this press release about action figures of any kind. So they say boys action, but again, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the DC license is not your typical license where you have one really true specific master toy license holder. Even before this, Mattel was kind of considered the master toy license holder for DC, there were other companies that were doing very similar product with DC, and that is something that is kind of strange. It is very different from what I'm told. It is very different from, say, like the Marvel license and with like Hasbro and Marvel Legends and stuff. And I guess the best way to describe it is they're much more loose with what they will allow other companies to do with the license. So that's why I think you see companies like DC Collectibles doing very similar product to what Mattel does. And even companies like NECA Toys in the past have done some stuff that they slipped in and gotten released and such. And again, that's because the license for DC is just much more loose than, say, something like Hasbro and Marvel Legends. So yeah, obviously there are other companies that will do some stuff like Diamond Select Toys in the Marvel area where you've got like the 7-inch Marvel Select line, but that is very limited to what Diamond can do with that. That's why they only do a couple figures a year. It's why the character choices they do are very limited. I would even say probably why like articulation is a little more limited with those figures, and definitely why they're in the 7-inch scale as opposed to the 6-inch scale. So it is just a whole different ball game. And as I've talked to companies over the years, it's actually something that's very frustrating because it makes it harder for the companies to take that license and make it profitable. So I know it's something that actually companies have not been terribly fond of when it comes to the DC license. But again, that's something that we have to keep in mind here. And the reason why that is because with this news of Spin Master, that does not necessarily preclude Mattel from continuing to do things like DC Multiverse figures. I know a lot of people are making that assumption, and that may end up being the case, but at this very point, we just don't know. And so I want to be very clear on that. Despite what you might be reading, I even saw I think it was Sci-Fi Wire that ran an article, and honestly, I don't think they have a clue of what they're talking about. But they wrote an article basically saying that Mattel had lost the DC Multiverse license, and I don't think they have anything to base that on other than this press release, which again is very vague. I don't, Mattel. I've reached out to Mattel; they are not talking at the moment. In large part just because it's been the holidays and people are on break and stuff, but also just because there's a lot of legal stuff going on, and so until they have all their ducks in a row, really nobody is talking at this point. So again, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying anybody's wrong at this point because we don't know, but I am saying that there is no factual information at this very moment that says that Mattel is going to discontinue DC Multiverse past 2020. Now, 2020 is a very key year because we do know for sure that that is when the current license that Mattel has that they struck with Warner Brothers for DC Comics ends. But what we don't know is what the new license entails. We think that it's going to entail that Mattel will definitely continue to do their girl-based action figures and maybe even other things like their construct toys and things like that. But again, even that I would say is not 100% clear. But we do know that they are not giving up completely DC Comics stuff. It's just, again, not 100% clear what exactly, who's going to be doing what. Now, again, with Spin Master has really no history with adult collector-oriented action figures. I don't think they know that market at all. They tried to do those Tron figures, which were pretty bad overall. The quality on those figures was, quite frankly, horrible. And so even if they decided they wanted to try and do adult oriented action figures, my personal feeling is it's not something that collectors would embrace. If you don't like DC Multiverse and what Mattel has been doing, I really don't think you're going to like anything a company like Spin Master would try and do. So my hope is that Spin Master is not even going to try and do that stuff. They might do toys for the basic lines. Mattel has been doing basic figures, the Mission Masters and things like that. So you might see Spin Master try and pick that up, which is again made for the kids and everything. But hopefully my hope is that Spin Master just does not really focus on adult oriented collector stuff and they let somebody else do it. Whether it's Mattel, whether Mattel can do it, whether Mattel still wants to do it is really unknown at this point. Now what I hope, yes, Mattel has been improving their action figures. Their DC Multiverse line has improved in the last year or so. Articulation has gotten a little bit better. Sculpting has gotten better in many cases. But if we're being completely honest, when you compare the DC Multiverse stuff with, say, Hasbro Marvel Legends, it is still not really on par with what Hasbro has been doing with the 6-inch Marvel Legend line. So Mattel still has a long way to go if they're going to choose to do multiverse figures, if they really want to be competitive with the likes of a Hasbro or the overseas companies like Mafex and SH Figure Arts and all that stuff. And then, of course, even like Mezco and the 112 Collective line, there's a lot of different options for DC collectors out there. And my general feeling is just from what I've seen, my observations, that a lot of you have just kind of washed your hands of the DC stuff right now. You're not really into the DC multiverse line. You know, you guys that collected the DC UC, a lot of you have not been happy with the multiverse line, and you've just moved on. You are not willing to give Mattel any more of your dollars because you just don't feel like the quality is there. Now, I'm not saying that I'm in that boat. I like some of the DC stuff. I like some of what Mattel has done. So, you know, like I said, to me, there's a big question of whether Mattel even wants to continue to do the multiverse stuff. You know, the adult-oriented action figure collector stuff always, it seems, in my mind, has always kind of been on the back burner for Mattel. It's not been their main focus. I don't think it's where the main money was made. And so, you know, now that they no longer have that area of the action toys for kids, you know, that's going to be done by Spin Master, which is what, you know, we've seen some articles put out by like Bloomberg which talked about this, and that's what they were focusing on. And even the Mattel stock took a little bit of a hit when this news first broke, because, you know, even though I think they probably could still do multiverse adult action figures, that's not where the main money is made from this license. And my feeling is that Mattel is not even really going to be that interested in continuing to do multiverse figures if they can't do the other things that where the real money is being made. So again, that's just my opinion. That's just my speculation. I'm not saying that's fact, but you know, who knows? Maybe they will continue, or maybe they can't. I mean, it is possible that with this license that they actually can't. But again, I just want to be clear that we don't know for sure at this point. Now, what would I like to see best case scenario? What I would like to see is that if Mattel chooses not to do DC Multiverse stuff, if they either can't or choose not to, my hope is this will open the door to other companies, either like maybe NECA Toys. You know, they've again done some pretty cool 7-inch stuff in the past. They even have those Predator and Alien versus DC characters that they showed at Toy Fair a couple years ago that never got released. So at the very least, maybe this will open the door to allow them to get those figures released. But and hopefully, even more so, maybe it allow them to do more DC stuff. Or if not NECA, then DC Collectibles. You know, my feeling, and again, this is just my speculation based on after talking with people, you know, who are familiar with the situation. My feeling is that the number one reason why the DC Icons line from DC Collectibles, the 6-inch line, was canceled is not necessarily because of sales, but because they were too close to scale with the Mattel stuff, and Mattel basically did not want that line to continue. And because they were the primary holder of DC, you know, they made a stink about it, and I think that caused the line to get canceled. So, you know, if Mattel chooses to no longer do DC Multiverse, then hopefully, you know, this might open the door to DC Collectibles returning to the 6-inch scale line and doing more icons. You know, that's not to say that, you know, I want Essentials to end, because I do like the DC Essentials line, but I do think if they could do 6-inch action figures in keeping with Essentials, or icons that are in keeping with, you know, the size of Marvel Legends, I think that would be a much more popular line with collectors. So more sales, get people more interested in DC action figures. Because again, my honest feeling is a lot of you just have lost interest in DC action figures in general. You know, that there's just not a huge level of excitement for any of these DC figures. Even like the DC Essentials, while I think it's a good line, I just have not seen the enthusiasm from you guys out there for it. You know, a lot of you are mad because they're 7-inch scale and things like that. So, I don't know, but you know, hopefully this will actually lead to good things for DC collectors, and we'll get some good quality 6-inch DC figures. So that's it. I just wanted to share my thoughts. I just wanted to kind of clear the air with all the rumors that have been running around. Again, not saying anybody's wrong. I just don't think anyone has any actual factual information at this point, and it's just kind of speculating or guessing, and we will have to wait and see what happens from here on. With Toy Fair just right around the corner in February, I'm sure we will get more details by then, if not sooner. You know, obviously the holidays are are coming to an end, so people will be getting back to work. So I'm sure, more information about what exactly is going on with these companies will be coming to light very soon, and we'll just have to wait and see. I will definitely keep you guys updated on Toy News International, as well as here on YouTube. But again, like I said, definitely should be interested to see what happens here. So let me know what you guys think. Are you excited? Would you like to see Mattel continue to do DC Multiverse figures past 2020? Would you like to see another company do them? Which company? Do you think NECA might be a good option, or DC Collectibles? Do you think this could open the door for DC Icons to return? Let me know your thoughts. What would excite you? What would get you excited about DC comic action figures again? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys are still excited about these. If so, let me know in the comments section. So that's it. Again, hope you guys have a great 2019. You have a great New Year's Day. And until next time, guys, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And hit the bell notification so you're alerted every time I upload a new video. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.